RHS Pre-Calculus presents Some Indifferent Story Time.
Grandpa, tell me a story.
Well, Sonny, once upon a time, when I was about your age, my grandpa told me a story about when he was a kid and when his grandpa told him a story set in medieval times.
Oh yes, tell me.
Okay, here it goes. Once upon a time, there was an evil castle and a good castle. They were right across from each other and they were constantly at battle. One day, the princess from the good castle was taken away by evil knights and placed in an underground dungeon. No one in the good castle wanted to go and save her because they couldn't figure out how to get to the dungeon without hitting the moat while digging. One knight stepped up and said,
I know how to get to the dungeon.
and here's how he did it. The knight knew that he had to dig 75 degrees down from where he stood from the castle to get to the dungeon. Do you know how he did it?
Oh yes, Grandpa, I know. He used the sum and difference formulas, right?
Well, yes. Do you know how it works?
No. Tell me.
Okay, first of all, he needed to know how much vertically he had to dig, so he had to use the sine sum and difference formula. So he needed sine of 30 degrees and sine of 45 degrees to get sine of 75 degrees. So he used a unit circle and found the values of sine of 30 and 45, and he used those in the formula to get sine of 75 degrees is equal to square root of 2 plus square root of 6 over 4. Then he knew that sine is equal to y over r, so he needed r. So he figured out that r was 100 meters. So he used 100 as r and got sine of 75 degrees is equal to y over 100, which then he replaced sine of 75 degrees with the square root of 2 plus square root of 6 over 4. Then he multiplied 100 for both sides and ended up with y equals 96.59 meters. So now he knew how much he had to dig downwards. But then he had to figure out how much he had to dig horizontally. So he used the cosine sum and difference formula to figure out cosine of 75 degrees. Again, he used a unit circle to figure out cosine of 30 and 45 degrees. He ended up with cosine of 75 degrees equaling square root of 2 minus square root of 6 minus square root of 2 over 4. Cosine of 75 degrees is equal to x over r. So he again replaced r with 100 meters and got x equals 25.88 meters.
But Grandpa, why didn't he use the sine of u minus v formula or the cosine of u minus v formula?
Well, because he did not know what 120 degrees was, so he couldn't use the cosine of u minus v formula. He thought sine of u plus v and cosine of u plus v formulas would be easier.
But Grandpa, why didn't he use the tangent formula?
Well, the tan formula gives you what y over x, and he only knew what r was. And since he didn't know what y and x was, he couldn't use the tan formula. But what the point is that because of trigonometry, the knight saved the princess and everyone lived happily ever after.